Hi, it's Elle here at Awakening Cosmic Reality Show, and today we have David Lotherington with us. How are you, David?
Close, Lotherington. I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for asking.
I got to know you about a year and a half ago, and that you're a healer and also an SSP asset and experiencer. Is that correct?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, so today we're going to be discussing your healing modalities and some of your SSP and MIB Men in Black encounters. Is that okay with you?
Yep, sounds wonderful. Let's do it.
Perfect. So why don't you just introduce yourself and your bio, who you are and what you do?
All right. Well, first I'd like to say thanks so much for having me on the program. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you.
So I am an Akashic records reader. I do energy healing. I read DNA codes. I'm a telepath, and I'm a channeler. So I dabble in a bunch of different stuff, but I try to use them all and synergize them together to do a better healing session for people primarily. And because of that, I think it's kind of, perhaps it's a karmic reward or whatever, but my abilities are becoming stronger because I use it to heal, you know, to help others and stuff like that. A little bit about me. What would you like to know?
Well, your origins, like the Kalandi, and how you came into this world and where you came from.
Okay, so before this life, I was a lupine being from Series B, and I was creating a vessel for this physical body here. So on a craft called the Kalandi. So in 1974, my father's DNA was used on the Kalandi craft. And for 9 years, that DNA was tinkered with, augmented, or however you choose to say, enhanced, optimized, to have more non-terrestrial DNA than a regular human normally. So this DNA did a couple of things to help me with my missions with the space program and other things as well in my life. But one of the main reasons why I had to add more lupine DNA to my DNA was so that my soul could go from a lupine body into a human body. So because the DNA was changed from one body to the other, it was easier for the soul to move from one body to another. So the Kalandi is a craft that's about 3 miles long, and it's located off of about 1 mile off the coast in a cave system around San Diego and Tijuana, around the middle of both of them. So it's not there anymore, but it was there. And yeah, so during the process, it's important that other souls are prevented from entering the body during a procedure like that. So what we had to do was create a field around the fetus, or whatever you wish to call it, to prevent other souls from entering. And then when I passed away, which I didn't want to actually go back into active duty again. I just wanted to go back. But I was told that it's Marua is one of my captains. He said that I have to go back. So anyway, so I'm back, and now I'm just helping as many people as I can.
So what does this lupine body of yours look like?
It's about 7 feet tall. It's blue. It looks kind of like a werewolf, but not quite like that. It has really big, strong legs. The memory that I have is me very emaciated, super, like probably weighed only like 110 pounds, and I was about 7 feet tall. So, but I still could see the mass on the legs. But naturally, the species have their weight is around 150 to 200 pounds. So they're not very big in general, but they're pretty strong. Their teeth are smaller than a wolf. But physiologically, they look pretty similar, but the ears are much smaller.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think your different abilities, your telekinesis, your psionics, How do you think that fits in with your healing modalities right now?
Well, the telekinesis is something that I haven't really tapped into in 3D. I always had dreams of using telekinesis and telepathy and levitation and stuff like that. But whenever I go to use it, it's just like absolutely nothing. But at the same time, my team has been teaching me about it. But I just have that adrenaline firewall, preventing me from using it.
What about your psychic abilities? When you work with clients, I know you do sessions, right? You do memory retrievals, you do healing. How does your psychic abilities come into that?
So what I do is I entrain my frequency to match that of the client, which allows me to see their consciousness levels, allows me to see their DNA codes, which is usually like non-terrestrial DNA percentages that I can see. But it also entrains me to their emotions as well, so I can feel their emotions as my own. And sometimes people aren't aware of how they're feeling because maybe they're too distracted with work or whatever. But I can feel that, and I can also feel pain in my body where they would have discomfort as well, which is another way that I use it for. But primarily, I use my abilities to connect to their energy, and then I can look into the chakral field and see what's spinning too fast, what's too slow, is it the right color, are there implants, is there AI, is there black goo, and all this other stuff that can be potentially in the field.
And I recently listened to the James Rink interview with you. You said that you had done some hypnosis and quantum healing hypnosis as well. Yeah. So that's how you regained some of your SSP memories and other past life memories. How did all that work? Like, what made you decide to do hypnosis?
It's kind of, well, I can only say it's synchronistically, that you meet the right person at the right time, because not everyone you can trust with information like that.
Yes, true.
And not just, you can't trust them because they'll think you're crazy, because that's a real thing. But also you have to be able to allow them to get into your field. So the first person that I did QHHT with, his name was the Egyptian Rising Phoenix. That was his Facebook name. And he did a QHHT session with me, and he was able to glean me drift with me rather, while we had the session. So he could see what I was seeing while I was having the hypnosis done, which gave him a big advantage in the hypnosis technique. And so he was able to see what I was doing, so it kind of helped him with the next step. And yeah.
And did you find it beneficial? Did you get a lot of memories back from that?
I got a lot of memories back from that, yeah. And the biggest thing was actually many of the lives weren't terrestrial lives, like on Earth. So they didn't really have a lot of value, I guess, as far as experience in this life go. But it was just more eye-opening experiences that, oh, there is more than just an Earth life going on, and there's a lot more than meets the eye as far as life goes.
Mm-hmm. And from that interview with James, you have recovered quite a lot of memories. I was quite interested to hear about the zombies and the base, and about the shape-shifting program. Could you discuss those a little bit, what those are?
So I always try to stray away from the zombies thing, because it's an alternate reality, and it kind of throws off this timeline. But sure, I'll do that for you. So when I was younger, I used to have zombie dreams all the time. And it wasn't like the Walking Dead type of zombies. It was zombies that were runners. And actually, like, I hate zombie movies that are runners. I can watch them all day if they're just slow zombies, but if they're runners, I just hate it. Anyway, and I used to have, they were always different. They were never the same dream. And so throughout my life, having these dreams, I would be like defeating them in different ways. And then I started to have memories of them because it happened when I was awake. And I'd have like a flashback to something that happened like when I was attacked or whatever. So yeah, you were interested in hearing about one of the times it happened.
Yeah, you were at some outpost and a little intelligent zombie came and attacked you and you had to deal with it. And
Okay, so yeah, that was the abomination, I remember.
yeah.
So yeah, we were at a little outpost. There was maybe 20 or 30 people there, and we had just been attacked. We had like this small gate that protected us, and we were in like this industrial complex. Everybody used spears for protection, but there were a few psionic people there as a group in the group of survivors. Now, not all zombies are the same. People that have a stronger metagene, when they were infected with the virus, would transform into something beyond a regular zombie. And sometimes that would give them psionic capabilities that would activate them and also mutate them at the same time. Sometimes it will give them greater intelligence, an intelligence factor, or it could potentially make them way stronger and more difficult to kill. So in that, when I remembered that, I remember I was on duty, gate duty, and I remember I was pissed because there was an abomination that came to the gate, and I didn't want to have to deal with it myself, because to deal with an abomination by itself is a difficult task. But this one was altered and it was more intelligent as well. So I was like, God damn it, why do I have to do this all by myself? But anyway, just a little bit before that, I had been communicating with this hive mind like being, which is another metagene alternate entity, I'll say. And it had the ability to communicate with a collective of zombies. I'll just call them zombies because I don't quite know another term to call them. And that's not a feature that they all have. So they don't all have this hive mentality, and they don't all move together naturally. But if they have a target in front of them, then they will go together for that. You guys really interested?
Well, yeah, because I've talked to a few SSP assets who are like, can you help me? Can you look into my memories? And when I do, I see werewolves, I see zombies, I see vampires. That seems to be a common theme, denominator theme. Different species are infected with viruses that turn them into werewolves, that turn them into zombies, or there's natural vampires, actually, species that were born like vampiric. That's just their natural state.
The
But then
Anshar?
I don't know about the Anshar. I know of other species like spacefaring vampires that I've done self-hypnosis and other hypnosis, and the recalls I have from that is space vampires. Like, they're just species that are born that way. They don't drink human blood, they drink synthetic blood to survive, because they have super strength, supervision, they're larger than normal humans. They're like 7 to 8 feet tall, muscular, and it's a myth that vampires can't walk during the day, because these guys can at night and during the day. They have super strength abilities. So that's the type of vampires I saw in the SSP during my time in the SSP.
That's really interesting you mentioned that. So I have always been kind of attracted to vampires for whatever reason. I never knew why. And I found out that I had a past life as a being something like that. And yeah, you're bang on with the traits. It wasn't like, it didn't look human. Like, it wasn't a human, but I had the ability to absorb energies, through energy manipulation, but also physically drain. So it was like a full embodiment of taking from something and giving to myself. But
Yeah,
that's another life, right?
yeah, these guys can just draw energy from anything around them, like nature and stuff. They don't drain people. It's against their code of ethics to drain people. They just take energy from whatever planet they're on or whatever is available out in space. Just just that's their natural state to do that, and then redirect that energy. And these vampires have amazing psionic abilities or psychic abilities, whatever you choose to call it, and that's part of the strength that they have. So they can fire off from their hand, convert the energy and fire laser beams just from their hand, or fireballs.
Yeah, that's incredible to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do it in close quarters on the ship itself unless there's a simulation room that's like energetically isolated in the field, like
because they could absorb the field.
Yeah, like it has to have some kind of an electrical protection field so they don't blow up the ship, so they don't really practice their psionics on the ship, like firing fireballs. It has to be in wide spaced practice fields, like planets. So if they are practicing, then the energetic field is around the room, so they can't like torch the facility itself wherever they're practicing. But it's a lot of energy, and they usually have like a barrier on the doors and the wall. Do not come in. There was a session of this and that going on, and who they are, because they don't want to hurt anybody on the ship when they're practicing this stuff. And they actually serve with human crew as well. They look mostly humanoid, these vampires, but they serve with human crew on the Planetary Corporation ships. So I saw a few of them. It was rare for me to see them, but sometimes they would be on the ships with us.
It's just reminding me of a story that, or a memory actually, of being on another scale, I guess. So I was working with a group called Alpha Fleet 9, and this was with Dark Fleet. So my job was a psionic specialist, and there was one or two of us on each ship, and we were like a military group, or mercenary rather. So we were hired and required, it's like by the ethical codes, to have one of these people per ship because of what exists out in space. And we were flying kind of like what it looks like, those triangular ships in Star Wars, those big long ones. And there was a few of us, and we were a mining vessel, and we were looking for a mineral that, it was red in color. I can't remember what its name is now, but it had anti-gravitational capabilities, but it wasn't like the same as the conventional capabilities. And the people that, or the government that wasn't able to obtain them, because this resource is very, very valuable, they could never like trade for it, so they had to find it themselves. And the issue with that was it was so far away. And in that region of space, there's many entities that are extremely large, and they just like hover around space. Essentially, they just drift around, and kind of like space jellyfish, I guess, but totally ethereal. And it's happened a couple times in the past where they come across a ship and they will just completely kill everybody on the ship within like maybe a minute, and then they'll just keep floating on. So they would have like, everybody would be dead on the ship, and they wouldn't know what happened. So my job was to create a psychic construct of energy and lead them away from these ships, so to distract this entity from feeding off of the crew. So anyway, we would get to the planet that we needed to get to. And once we did, we would drop down this massive circular ring, kind of like on Avatar. I think they're looking for a resource on that planet actually too. But it's kind of like that. They drop this massive, they'd shoot a couple of the locals, because I remember in this memory, there was saurian, or not saurians, but reptilian species on the planet, but they were just in tribal phase of development. And they shot a couple of them, and then they ran off. Then they went to come back, and by the time they got back, there was this massive ring on the ground with a force field on top. So they couldn't get in, and that's when they started to harvest this mineral that was really difficult to obtain.
That's interesting. And you also mentioned you work for Kruger. Can you describe some of that experience?
Sure. I don't have a lot of my Kruger memories back. But primarily my work with Kruger was a 20 and back program because it was in another reality. And I did that in exchange for some viral enhancements that I have now. And that was actually given on the Kalandi as well. So they do viral enhancement, and they create super soldiers and other enhanced beings as well on the ship. My work for Kruger was, well, primarily my memory is going through training programs. And like, so I would be in this room that's like 20 by 20 by 10 foot ceiling. And it would be me just not knowing anything versus a zombie. And the zombie would run at me and I'd be, whoa, 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 what are you doing? What are you doing? I had no idea what was going on. And then I would get killed. And then I'd be back at the same moment with a zombie in the opposite corner of the room again. And then they'd run at me and it would start again. So eventually I learned how to defend myself and defeat it. And when that happened, then there was like, boom, 2 zombies. And after that happened, my psychic abilities activated. And I was starting to use telekinesis to dispatch them rather than physical, means, because it was too dangerous once they get close, because they don't have limiters like we do. They can just squeeze, like we stop squeezing hard because it hurts our hands, because we have like, I don't know what they're called, but limiters that prevent us from breaking our own bones when we squeeze our hands and things like that. But they don't have them. And also in the program, they had like adrenaline topped up. So normally like a zombie will use that adrenaline and it won't be able to get it back. But they were like topped up fresh, like a freshly bitten person would become. So their full capabilities would be activated. So anyway, after 2 zombies just went to 3. And then after 3, it would go to 1 vampire. And then it would go 1 vampire and a zombie, 1 vampire, 2 zombies, 1 vampire, 3 zombies. Although then it would go 2 vampires. It would go all the way up until it hit 1 master vampire. And then it just went on for so long. I was eventually fighting 3 master vampires at the same time. And then I woke up. I was like, okay, that was an interesting memory or a dream or whatever it was. Because I didn't really know at the time what it was until I found out that I worked for Kruger. So.
And that's VR simulation training, or? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting, because we also did a lot of VR simulations on the planetary corporation ships. They would basically say, well, out in space, you might deal with this, this, and that. Sometimes you can use laser weapons. And sometimes you can only use your psionic abilities and pure energy to fight off different creatures. Like physical weapons on vampires and zombies it's not going to penetrate their shields. They're super strong. If they get to you, they bite you, and that's it. The zombies bite you, and that's it, you're infected. And there's sometimes almost no cure for there's different zombie viruses. It's not just one.
Yeah.
So for some of...
Sorry to interrupt you there. I don't know if they're from another reality or what. So I didn't perceive any zombies with shields personally, except for the augmented metagene zombies. Those are the only ones that I experienced, but I'm sure that it's possible.
Well, these guys, they had like sort of what looks like a watch on their hand. These are strong zombies, very physical. They have a watch. They're intelligent. So the virus turns them. They still have some consciousness, some intelligence. So they have this watch. They press the button on the watch and it activates an electrical field around them. So you literally can't like penetrate them with a laser beam weapon or even a projectile physical railgun or anything. It's like you try and nothing penetrates this electromagnetic shield. Whatever the force field around them is, it doesn't penetrate it. And these zombies still look somewhat human, except they have fangs. So, and their eyes are like glowing either gray or red, yellow, something like that. You can see that they're zombies by the eye color change in the fangs.
Wow. Now, I've never experienced anything like that, but I'm glad I haven't.
It was damn scary in the simulations. And I never saw them in person or anything, but in the simulations, it was scary. So we were told, turn on your psionic abilities if you see that particular zombie type with the electrical force field. When they activate it, you will not be able to penetrate it with projectile weapons or laser beam weapons. So you have to use your psionic abilities. Vampires, same, like super strong vampires, they just naturally have the electromagnetic field around them. They don't use any technology to activate it. It's just part of their natural protection.
It's like their aura, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't use weapons against them. You have to do full blast psionics. Blast them with whatever you have in your ability arsenal to use against them. So, and I mean, I never went up against vampires, the bad ones. I saw some on the ships and they weren't bad. But there's different types of vampires as well. So there's rogue ones in space, and they just invade everything and anything and take over.
And I remember in that simulation I was talking about earlier, the master vampires were much, much, much more difficult than the regular.
Yeah, definitely.
The regular, they had enhanced strength and senses, but the masters had abilities. They had psionic abilities.
Yeah, they can control you like a puppet. Like they can just concentrate on many different people and control them like puppets with their psionics.
I felt that when I was fighting them, that they have this passive feeding ability. It's like you just have to be around them, so they have like an aura of draining or something like that. And the longer that I was fighting them, the weaker I would get.
Yeah, so they can drain you, but the ones that I was training in the VR simulation, they're like, they focus on the team. Like we were in a team of 3 fighting against 2 of the master vampires. They just look at you and they're like they can control your mind. You're frozen. While the other team members are fighting the other vampire, this one is like just froze you. So you have to counter the freezing action. They can freeze one vampire, master vampire can freeze 5 people at the same time and still keep looking what his buddy is doing over there and helping him out with the fight.
That's pretty intense. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, so we were warned, zombies and vampires are the most powerful things out there in the universe. So if you see these guys, if you have psionics, great, use them. If you don't, run the other way. And
because you're dead.
Because you're dead, yeah. And werewolves are the third natural predator.
I've heard of many different variants of werewolves.
Yeah, there are.
And lupine just seems like it's not a werewolf, but like it's a non-terrestrial species, right? Now there's like werewolves that are transformed through ritual. Like there's a Masonic ritual to make someone a werewolf or a vampire. And that's like by embodying a demon or something like this. Then you have the Native Americans' way of shape-shifting into a wolf, which is something totally different. So there's many different forms of this. And shape-shifting is different again. So.
Yeah, or the virus infection, where it's just a genetically engineered virus that is given to human, to anything, different kind of species, and it can turn them into a hulking werewolf. And when you go into genetic modification, doesn't matter what your original genetics are, you can modify it and your body mass goes up, everything goes up. So whatever, okay, say I'm this is me, 5'5" little girl. Well, I'm not that little, but you know, a bit above average height for female. That, you know, I'm 35, whatever, 5'5". I don't weigh 200 pounds, but say you give me genetic modification, like modify my genes to whatever else you want to splice me with, body mass can change, skin color, everything can change. That's not within the realm of not being able to do that. Out in space, out in these advanced medical things, it can be done. Literally, your genetics can be spliced and diced and modified into whatever they want you to look like.
Yep.
So inject you with werewolf virus, after 20 minutes, you're a werewolf.
That's just reminding me of the Kalandi, like the viral program, because that was a big part of it. Using viruses to change DNA. And they can use the virus to introduce a new strain of genetics, and that will just multiply in the body and absolutely change your genetic structure.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely not the same after.
Yeah, and then they can reverse it as well and make you human, back to human. When you have advanced technology, there's no limitation to genetic manipulation. It's
crazy what they could do.
Yeah, you want pink hair? Fine. We can just add a bit of this gene and a bit of that. Today your hair is pink, tomorrow you can just, with a thought form, make it blue. Same with your eyes. That's the simplest genetic modification they could give you, like a little add-on, a little mod, a little genetic mod. Hair color, change your hair color, change your skin color, change your eye color.
And
even
that's
your
the
voice.
Scientific transformation, like using technology, but you can also do that through shapeshifting as well.
Oh, can you describe the shape-shifting program that you were in?
Sure. So when I was younger, from 4 to 6 years old, I was in a shape-shifting program. And I would always get nosebleeds when I was a child, like 4 or 5 days a week. And every time that I did, the teacher wouldn't know what to do with me because it would just always bleed. And I've had my nose cauterized 3 times actually, but it still bled through the cauterization, which isn't supposed to happen. Anyway, from that age, from 4 to 6, I was taken in a TLB6 craft to a location which I can't exactly remember where it was, but I remember being in a parkade where it was just like a wide open space with concrete pillars, concrete ceiling, concrete floor. And there was several children in the program. And some of them could, some people were better at shape-shifting than others. I'm not great at it. Others can just become what they want to become. But I had to shift into what I was in a past life, which is a lupine being, with little alterations. So the only real alterations were like a bit beefier, and I had my feet had like these raptor talons that went out as well, and the claws they could change as well, and the tail could disappear. But besides that, it was virtually the same form that I had before. And so there was a team of people, of psychologists, cognitive behaviorists, psychotherapists, and classical conditioning instructors. And their job was to get us to absolutely forget all the limitations that we potentially had and conditioning, and reprogram that to make us believe that we can do whatever we want. So they would get us to watch videos of people flying or videos of people shape-shifting, and that would make it that much easier for us to just do it for ourselves. And as a child, you know, you could believe something pretty easily if your parents tell you like all the time that you can do it. So I had this blue wolf form, and my nickname was Dingo. And they also called me Jackal later in the program. And there was another child that transformed into a tortoise. And he wasn't useful enough. There was not enough practical application with his shapeshift to actually use him in programs. Even though he was very capable at doing other things, he just wasn't getting there in the shapeshifting program. So they used him in another program. But as far as the other kids went, there was one that became an eagle, and they were using reconnaissance. And there was a terrifying, I just remember how scary it was. It looked like a tiger, but it was on 4 legs, and it had this it looked like armor plating that went up its face, but it was like built into the skull of the shapeshift. So he could create a shape-shifting structure from something that didn't already exist. And that's why he was at the next level of shape-shifting. You know, like I was already a lupine. This other kid just thought of a turtle or an eagle. But this guy made something completely new, which takes it just to the next level.
So if they couldn't use the kid that did the turtle, what would happen to this kid? Where would he be sent?
That I don't exactly know. I know children were tested with stronger metagene factors. And I don't know exactly what the metagene is, but it has to do with galactic DNA and also the strength of the soul as well.
Mm-hmm.
That has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, I think he was used in another program because he was definitely very skilled, even as a young child, but I don't know what came of him.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in planetary corporations on Mars, I could not shapeshift into anything to save my life. That's not one of the abilities that I have. My abilities are strong psionics and research and development. That's my abilities. So what they would want me to work with different ET species to liaison with them when they would come to make deals and negotiations. So they just genetically modify me temporarily and to make me look like a different being for whatever amount of time I needed to do the work. And then, it would wear off and I would digress back to myself, to my human body. And I said, please, if you want me to work with other ET species, as long as it's humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head, and two eyes, one mouth, 1 nose, 2 ears, just make it standard. You can give me different hair color, different skin color, different height, but it has to be the standard humanoid. Anything else, please, no fishtail, no, like I want legs and I want arms and I need to walk and talk. So, I mean, I could telepathically communicate with the other ETs. I didn't have to talk, but I wanted the comfort, at least, of a humanoid ET. I could have other markings on myself, stripes, whatever, as long as it resembled human in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, different ETs are different colors, different heights, different whatevs. So I said, as long as it's as long as it's human, I'll do it. I just don't want nightmares after these experiences. So within 30 minutes, you're transformed. You're the dermal. It's not a needle. It's just a dermal thing. They tap you with the dermal device. And within 30 minutes, the drug serum that alters the DNA works. Whatever DNA sequence they programmed into it, it works through, goes through your skin to your blood, transforms you into something else, a different ET being.
I don't think that'd be easy to do because you would have to have the ability to, you'd have to be a strong enough psionic to be able to telepathically be able to communicate, so you wouldn't need the vocalization because there's so much culture and diversity in the universe, and you'd have to know the culture a little bit, right?
Pre-trained, actually, before we go in to do it. We're given memory, because I had Neuralink implants, so we're just downloaded the information, what the species are, what their culture is, what the laws, whatever we need, it's downloaded beforehand, before the transformation. So language as well, if it's verbal or psychic, language is language. You still have to know their language.
Yeah.
So that's all downloaded into the Neuralink implants. We study the info, absorb it, get transformed, and it's good to go. It's actually easy to do human genetic modification into another humanoid ET. So if it's humanoid ET to humanoid, that's easy. If it's growing a fishtail and getting rid of your legs, so it takes more time to modify the DNA to do that, because it's like,
I'm just thinking how that would affect like the soul. It wouldn't affect the soul, but humans think in a linear way, and only so many, like we can only act a certain way, right? But the soul is not really limited by that.
No, not at all. I had a lifetime as a mermaid, and I could transform from being a mermaid to having legs when I was on land, and then back in water with a fishtail, or what resembles a tail. Not necessarily not necessarily a fishtail per se, but just so people understand.
You know, it's so funny. I watched what's it, Something of Water, The Sound of Water last night actually. And it was like a mer, or I guess he was supposed to be a Triton in the movie, but he was a little bit too tall and a little bit too thick. You know what I mean? Like, it was clearly a human in a suit, but if they did it like perfectly, he would be much thinner and smaller.
Well, I mean, there's no limitation to the genetic modification that they can do on Mars in those. And it's strangely, these labs, cybernetics labs, they make human cyborgs, but they also tinker around with genetic manipulation and modification of humans. So it's like you're needed for this job to liaise with these ETs. As long as you're like in agreement, you're going to be meeting humanoid looking ETs. This is the genetic modification you're receiving. You agree to it? Yes. Okay. Within 30 minutes, you have that genetic mod. You look like them. You go in. They're comfortable with you. You're comfortable with them. Broker the deal. You're out of there. That assignment is done. Back to human. If you do get a fishtail, it takes longer to get your legs back. It's not 30 minutes to reverse it. It
Right.
could be a couple of hours. So it depends on what you're transforming into, like in the genetic modification. Say if I was to be a huge ass spider with 8 legs and beady eyes, that would take several hours to reverse that change. And yeah, like you said, psychologically seeing yourself as that, it's not easy. It requires more prep to do that genetic mod, because you have to adjust yourself to the fact that you might not be on 2 legs, you might be on 4 legs.
Yeah, and you need a strong consciousness to be able to take that on. You know what I mean? Because like someone could easily become traumatized and become lost in that life as well.
Well, for that's why they have the memory erasure devices. So you don't get lost into it, or you don't dwell on it. Stick you into the medical pod, holographic medical pod, or regen tank. They can wipe those memories or alter it to make it look softer, more palatable. Oh yeah, you agreed to it. It's fine. No trauma when you really
it's all for the greater good.
Exactly, because with the mind wipes, they can make you agree to anything or disagree or whatever they want, or just soften the memory to make it more palatable.
Yeah, I believe it. I've experienced it, so.
Yeah. Were there any cats in the shape-shifting program for recon?
Like house cats, you mean?
House cats or similar, or dogs, because those are like so easy to implant wherever to spy on people.
You would think that they would just do something so basic, but what they wanted us for was combat missions
Okay.
rather than recon. Recon is like, they can already x-ray your house and find out where you hold all your guns, and they can use advanced sonography technology to see exactly and hear everything that's going on in your house. They don't really need recon at this point. The technology is so advanced to that level.
Okay, so when you go out to battle, right?
Yeah.
So the eagle, the shape shifting, so the eagle can just easily land on the ground and start fighting.
So she was just used to observe people from way up.
Okay.
For me, I don't know exactly what happened on all her missions because I don't really know. But for me, I remember being dropped out of the back of an airplane while it's flying in just human form. And I just remember not having a care in the world and just being like, see ya. And I just like fall back. And when I landed, I would just land on my feet, but there was telekinesis below my feet, which would save my legs and everything. And I just had no care in the world. I just knew I was indestructible, like kind of mindset. And then I would usually meet a team or something already on the ground. And then go for there. Like I have a memory with James Rink when he was in his cat form. I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's not like a tiger standing upright. It's not like anything like that, but it is orange. It's very wide. It's really difficult to describe. But anyway, it's like a Hulk, essentially. And together we were hack and slash, and we had our telepathy was fully activated, and we could just communicate with each other, and we knew what we were going to do. We worked as a really good team. So.
Well, when I first did an interview with James, the first thing that, when I scanned him telepathically, the first thing that came is seeing him literally like shapeshift into something that looked like a saber-toothed tiger. And he was called Sabretooth. That was his combat name, Sabretooth. So I knew right away that he had been in a shape-shifting program. Mm-hmm. And I told him, and at that time he wasn't sure. He's like, I don't remember a big cat, but I guess he could have easily turned into a saber-tooth-like animal. And
for sure, yeah.
He was walking upright, that he had like the look of a saber-tooth, what literally looked sort of like a saber-tooth.
I remember he was orange.
Yeah, orange, yeah, orangey yellow. I was like, whoa, codename Saber-tooth, like literally Saber-tooth. And all his teammates were like, Sabe, you did it, successful mission, done. They'd shorten it to Sabe, and he didn't like that. He's like, just call me Saber-tooth. That's my code name, just call me that and nothing else. And he'd growl at them. So that's what I picked up the first time.
There's a show on Netflix right now called Love, Death, and Robots. And one of the it's just like a new thing, I guess. It's just like a 16-minute shows or something small. But one of the shows is called Shapeshifters. And what's really interesting about it is the relationship that the two shapeshifters have in the show. I won't ruin it for whoever wants to see it. But they just have this brotherhood. And that camaraderie is what I remember from the program, like that brotherhood. It was just a wonderful feeling and it really brought it back when I watched that. It's really cool.
Yeah, we were told never leave your teammates behind no matter what happens. You always grab your team. You don't want them interrogated. You don't want them in enemy hands. You always grab them. If they're dead, you can't retrieve them, then you leave them. But make sure you grab everything off of them so no evidence is left behind. It's like if you can't haul the body with you, at least grab everything off of them if they're dead. If they're alive and you can save them, or if you can help them, you got to retrieve them. You don't leave them behind. Mm-hmm. So, if it's impossible situation, if you can't retrieve them, then of course you have to retreat. But if you can grab them anyway, shape or form, you got to get them, and you got to make sure the team returns.
I can feel this triggering my emotions. I'm not quite sure why, but I definitely feel it.
Oh, it was part of basic training. When you get to Mars, you're like, don't leave your teammates behind because you're a bad team player then. If you're not willing, if the situation allows, retrieve them. Make sure they come back with you, because that's the team of 12 people you work with while you're on this job. Something
and you
happens.
Work with them a lot.
Yeah.
Like, every day. And some of these people you see, and you might not. So for me, I remember working with them like 2 or 3 days a week. And I didn't know if I was going to be working with this being or another being. They would be like tailored to what they're good at, essentially. Mm-hmm. And for the specific mission. And I might not see him again for a week and a half, but he was always like in my life, not just James, but other beings as well.
Yeah, they're an extension of you. We were told, this is your team of 12 that you're working with. For this job, they're your family. So make sure they come back. Keep them alive. Don't leave them behind, because loyalty is important. If the team member is dead and we have to switch them out for somebody else, you might not like whoever you get next. So waste not, make not, waste not. Make sure your team is fully back with you. Don't just think people are expendable, even though they are expendable in these programs. And it's easy to replace people, but you might not like the next replacement that you're stuck with. They might be a terror. So they were trying to encourage us to work as team players and make sure we weren't wasting team members.
Now, my memories of Mars are pretty limited. but I do remember one event. You want to hear it?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I looked like myself. I was in a military base, and behind me there was a portal that opened up, and this woman, she had this like mohawk, like this purple mohawk, and she didn't look human. She was something mixed with human, I think. She had this massive tower shield that had spikes on the outside of it, and it was about the size of, as tall as her body, roughly. And she had this, it was like a staff, but also like a bow staff. Now, I just call it the melt-a-stick because I don't know what it's called. But whatever she touched would just turn to goop. So she came through this portal, and I seen her starting to come through because the staff came through first. I looked back, and I seen the rest of her come out. And then she started to attack me. And I didn't know what was going on. It seems like in all my memories, I don't know what's going on. But she was attacking me, and I was just like moving out of the way, and like I pushed the stick out of the way. And I grabbed the stick and moved out of the way at the same time, and the tip of the stick, the melt stick, just touched her, and she just turned into goop. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? Like, I was totally in shock. So I was like, I gotta cover this up. Like, I grabbed the shield. I guess I just left the stick there, but I grabbed the shield and I went into the bathroom. And I was like sitting in the bathroom stall, like just huffing, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And I hear like some footsteps coming into the bathroom, and then the door gets kicked in, and it bashes into the shield that I'm like holding in front of me while I'm kind of like, what the hell is going on, gathering myself. Anyway, this guy, I can only describe him as like Brock Lesnar size, but he was larger than Brock Lesnar. There's like someone called the Iranian Giant, and he looked kind of like that. But anyway, he kicked in the door, and then he just like pulled the door off the frame so he could squeeze in. And even though he couldn't fit in, like I'm sure he couldn't even use the bathroom if he wanted. And he kicked me, but I was holding the shield. And but he kicked me so hard. The shield had spikes on the outside. Okay, this guy is crazy, and I was really, really afraid because I got smashed into the side of the bathroom stall. And then he's like, he kept saying this like diminutive, like patronizing things like, oh, look at the little baby, you're gonna get crushed, like you're gonna be my bitch. And so I was terrified because I was only like regular 5'9" person, right? And then something just switched in me, and I was able to read his DNA, and I could tell that he had like 10% Alpha Draconian DNA, and everything just made sense at that moment. And I just knew, oh, that's why he's so tall. And I just stood upright, like nothing ever happened. I just dropped the shield, and I just walked forward with him. And he was lifted off the ground, and he was moving back towards the wall. And he was just like, what the hell? So I smashed him against the wall, and then I was able to lift him up on the ceiling, and I was like, okay, so who sent you? And he's like, I'm not telling you shit. And because he was like, he'd never had anyone that he couldn't face before, like just his mentality. And so he was like lying on the ceiling. And then I told him that I was just going to smash his head into the ground. So his feet were on the ceiling. I flipped him again, so his feet were on the ceiling, and his head was like this far off the ground. And he started to cry. And then he told me that he was sent to collect me for some group, some council or something like that. And they wanted to talk to me. Like, okay, well, get out of here. You know, I never want to see you ever again. And I put him down. But yeah, that's the memory.
Well, that correlates with the Mars training. When we got to Mars, first thing they told us in combat prep training, battle ready training. Although I didn't really see any battles or engage in much of anything except simulations, they told us it's not the size that matters, it's your abilities that matter when you take down somebody who's bigger than you. So know how to use your abilities and use them wisely, because you might get big people coming at you, but it's not the size of them, it's your abilities to take them down quickly and neutralize them.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what they said. And it makes sense even now to this day, whenever I go somewhere or I might end up in a difficult situation or somebody's intimidating me, they're bigger than me, taller than me, you know, outsmarting me. I just stand up and I put this big personality on, like, I'm not 5'5", I'm taller. And they back away from me because the energy that's coming off of me is repelling them.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's like your team goes into defense mode, you go into defense mode. Like I've had someone, so there was this woman and she was just joking around, but she punched me in the back. And I told her, like, never ever do that to me again. And she's like, okay, no problem. You know, I'm just joking. I was like, haha, that was funny, but I just don't do it again. Okay. Cause I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened a second time. And what I was doing, I was like leaning over, digging deep into like the bottom of a cabinet and like putting a can of beans away or something like that. And she punched me like full on in the back of the spine. And I didn't do anything. I just like held, my hand was just holding the can of beans. But she's like, ah, ah. And then she ran from the room. And I didn't know what had actually happened, but I knew I was pissed. And she came back later. I said, why did you run? She said, I just seen you. You were like 10 feet tall. So this stuff, like, I don't know, perhaps that was my team or whatever. But.
And who do you work with? Who's your team?
I don't know if I want to say.
Oh, come on. You're spilling the beans anyway. Tell it. Tell us, please. We all want to know, who is your beautiful team and who do you work with?
Well, I can't say too much, but I can say that I do work with Ashtar Command, and I have 4 members that watch over me. One of them is responsible for mission briefings. That's my captain, Marua. He's a Lyran. He's like a cat Lyran species. There's another being from there's 2 from Andromeda, and there's an Andromedan from Orion. And anyway, they do different things. One of them is responsible for if my emotions get too low, if my energy wavelength or whatever frequency gets too low, she will support me. She'll kind of bring me back up to where I need to be. Another guy is responsible for just removing boundaries and things that get in my way. So they all have like a particular function. And I'm sure that's the case with many other ground crew members. They have, you know, helpers from upstairs helping them out.
And do you also work with Arcturians by any chance?
I do, yeah.
Who, where, and why?
Arcturians, I've come across many different species of Arcturians with myself, but also with clients as well. I run into a group of Arcturians from another galaxy. They were totally different. But they were still love and lighty, but their energy was different. I've come across the species of white Arcturian. So from what I've gathered, there's 2 variants of Arcturian in this galaxy. One of them is from the star Arcturus, and they're like a pink to a purplish color. Like, I guess they have the skin variant because that's the color of the sun, right? It emits this blue light, so that's why they have the blue skin. And there's another variant that goes from white to orange. That's white, yellow, orange-ish. So I was talking to a group of Arcturians and I was asking about them, and they said that I have it on a piece of paper. I just don't want to mess it up. but they said that they don't actually need to have a corporeal form. They pick the color blue and project them as 8-foot tall blue beings as an it's like a tradition, to show themselves with this color. It's traditional for them to show themselves with the blue skin to honor their star that brought them all this success, and they're it was always with them during their path of enlightenment and stuff like that. So it's more of a tradition thing. And they were telling me about the garb that they wear and why they wear it and what certain things mean and all that.
I know you're curious. You probably like to know who they are, what the culture is, why they do what they do. I think you're like me.
I am. I'm a lot like that.
When I make contact, that's what I ask. Well, who are you as a being? Where did you come from? What's your culture like? Laws, rules? Do you procreate? What's your mating rituals?
Yeah, just like that. I don't ask silly questions. Like for me, it's silly to ask like, so do you have a dog or pets? But I ask about like morality and ethics and ideologies and physical attributes, stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. Some species get a bit iffy when you're asking about their mating rituals. Like, why do you want to know about that? Like, that's personal. Okay, what's your psychic abilities then?
Yeah, that's what happened with me when I asked about the Arcturian genitalia.
What did they tell you?
They said perhaps we should change the subject.
Yeah, that's a kind way of saying not now or not ever. Like, don't ask that. It's too personal.
Yeah. And they're so ethical, like they'll never say like no way or never or whatever. They'll just say perhaps not, oh, now is not the best time,
Yeah, exactly. Or this is not the situation to have this discussion. Perhaps we can have it in private off the record if you're curious. Yeah. You can access our holographic records and read all about it. If they're not comfortable telling you about it, they'll like point you to the information where you could learn about it.
Yeah.
Or download it into your implants, just the mating rituals of whoever species. They could send you a telepathic download and say, well, you can study this in private. We're not going to just engage in this topic right now.
So you have a connection with them as well, I can tell.
Yeah, I've had a connection with hybrid Arcturians. There was a bit of a mission on Earth, and I had help. So with that, I don't want to discuss it, but it was interesting. And there was 2 ships involved, and they're Arcturian blue hybrids, humanoid Arcturian hybrids. That's as far as I want to go with it. Very beautiful, very helpful.
I know the Arcturians have difficulty acclimatizing to the Earth's vibrational frequencies. Anyone that I've experienced that has like a lot of Arcturian, they always are kind of, I don't want to say frail, but they kind of look frail. Just like they're very thin boned, they're very thin people, right? And I don't want to say lanky, but they're 8 foot tall and they're not that heavy. So they are very, very thin and gangly.
Yeah, I was getting the human Arcturian hybrids. They were about 6 feet tall, up to 6 feet tall, and they were giving me energy assistance, like literally siphoning energy to me from the ship, so I would able to do my assignment near Yellowstone Park. So, they weren't beaming down to assist me. They were just providing me energy from the ship. Yeah. Amplifying my psionics to finish the mission near Yellowstone Park. So that was interesting. They said we can't beam down to the planet. The energy here is way too strong. You're on a mission. We can lend you energy, and that's about it to assist. I said that's fine. As long as I get the energy to finish this, I'm good.
I find that they don't have the muscle tone to be able to deal with gravity as well either. That's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I've seen are either like 10 feet tall, blue, like kind of this either silver, bluish, glowy tone, or like just blue, or they're short or 6 foot tall, bald, look humanoid, Arcturian. So they usually either, the ones that I've met, blue uniform. So,
Yeah.
and a circular blue ship.
I've seen, yeah. From my experience, the ships have always been like light vehicles that they use.
Mm.
So they're like, they can be really tiny, like this big, but they expand, right?
They can, yeah.
And or shrink or do whatever they want with the craft.
Yeah, because it's Arcturians are powerful with the mind, so they can control the ships that way.
Oh, one other thing that they mentioned to me was that they're often hired, because I asked them, like, what do they do in the galaxy? What's their role and all of this stuff? And they said that for a long time, they were traders. They traded technology for light. And I was like, what do you mean? But they mean like love and energy exchange. And I said, so what did you offer them? And they said, for a long time, we were trading. So the way that they would create the technology, they would create it in a higher dimensional reality, and they would bring it into this reality and manifest it physically.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of races, they are responsible. I don't know if they have like a market on it or what, but they create the consciousness of the craft through their consciousness.
Yeah, for me, they gave me knowledge because I studied with their hybrid Arcturians, and I learned a lot about psionics and energy manipulation and stuff, how to scan humans for physical issues. That's what I learned from their Arcturians. And I also worked with Grace, the Solipsi Ra, to remove my Neuralink implants. I wasn't going to mention this, but it's interesting because a lot of the stuff is psionic with ET communication and telepathic.
Yep.
Like I did psychic surgery on myself with the symbol and antenna instructions that the Solipsi Ra gave me, and they're good ETs that have been around for 2 billion years or 2 million, something like that. And basically they're from the Cygnus star system. Okay. So I was just like, I need to get rid of these Neuralink implants. They're bleeding gold from the fibers, from the optic fibers, right? It's invisible. It's like 4 implants, triangular implants in me with weird symbols. It's gold. They amplified my psionics for ET contact, for whatever I wanted, travel to allow me to teleport from planet to planet. But they were causing me issues with my brain, like brain inflammation. So I wanted to get rid of them to stop the gold from bleeding out into my brain, literally. So I'm like, I want to work with the Solipsi Ra. I made contact with their medical team, energetic medical team. So they're like, here are the symbol instructions for how to get rid of the implants through energetic psychic surgery. So I have like 3 pages. I'm like, well, can you tell me where the implants are and what they look like? Because you just basically gave me a download of everything. So like, can you separate the...
Make this linear, please? It's so quantum.
Yeah, exactly. Can you separate the instructions? Because it's all symbols, right? And it's glowing, and it's like, I'm writing it down on paper so I remember what it looks like while talking to them telepathically. With my eyes closed, I'm drawing things on paper, and I'm like, I hope I get it right. They're like, don't worry, it'll be good. This is almost like channeling, except not.
It's so difficult to describe what we do to people that are not like in the field doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's sort of like channeling and automatic writing, yet it's not. You're getting the psychic download from medical energetic beings who are just trying to like give you a download of images and energy. So I'm writing it all down. I'm like, just, I think I understand your instructions, but in these instructions, what are the implants and what are the healing symbols to get rid of them? Just show me what is what, and then I can just use it to remove the implants. So they separated it out. They showed me the 5 different types of symbols to psychically do the psychic surgery in my brain, left side of my brain. So I did it. It worked, and just by knowing what the implants looked like and through their instructions, I got rid of them with the healing symbols that they sent me. Yeah.
Now, I wonder if that's the same as galactic energy healing. So I took a course on galactic energy healing, which was taught by James Charles, who was channeling to Kerr, which is a non-terrestrial Lyran being. And she taught the whole class and the manual and all of that stuff. So I wonder how the symbols coincide. I'd be interested to see that in the future.
It's easy for me to utilize the symbols as long as I can tell them, please slow down with the download so I could write it out.
Right.
Because my abilities allow me to be able to telepathically communicate with any species and like write things down if they're giving me downloads of symbols and healing, even to understand what the energy looks like. Just I write beside the symbol, this is what the energy does, the purpose. Write it in English, of course, but as long as I have some semblance of a record, what the heck they're giving me, and I write it down or channel it or whatever process is going on, if I see it on paper afterwards, I get what it is, then I scan it into my computer, and I keep the originals, of course, but I always have it available in digital copy.
That's smart.
Yeah, because I found the Solipsi Raw are very, very good psychic surgeons. It's like exquisite work. Exquisite. Those implants are gone.
From my experience, like, because I do psychic surgery as well, and I have found human implants and then non-human implants, and they're always vastly different. Like human implants will sometimes, well, they vary obviously, like greatly, but sometimes they look like a little microchip, or they'll look like a cube with tentacles, and then there's like a cube with tentacles with a drill bit, whereas a non-terrestrial implant, there's several steps to remove them. They don't take like conventional cube shapes or circular shapes. They're like weird.
Yeah.
And I find that like you have to get the person to first deactivate them, and then it's like you have to take your time with them, because there's a few steps, maybe like 4 steps to absolutely removing it.
Oh yeah, it took me 2 hours to remove the triangular gold ones and the fiber optics as well. So they're non-terrestrial, they're partially etheric. It's like gold nanofibers, nanotech, like running throughout the neurons and axons of my brain. So I had to disconnect the optical gold fibers all over the brain, all over, because they were literally attached to the neurons of my brain. Wow. All through my brain. I had to detach that, then detach the triangular ones, and then remove all of that from my brain. And I couldn't get rid of the scarring. Got rid of the implants, couldn't get rid of the scarring. Had to go back to my self-hypnosis notes about the cybernetics labs on Mars to pinpoint my focus on medical data, on using biological drug serums, which is human plasma, like pure human plasma that's donated. Find an equivalent. They synthesize it on Mars. It's not by donation from people. They synthesize biological plasma. They can do that on Mars. Here, it's by donation from people. They haven't figured out how to synthesize it yet. So I had to get the equivalent from what's on Mars to Earth, medical jargon lingo, then use it on myself to get rid of the scarring white matter lesions that were on the left side of my brain.
Did you deal with it?
I got rid of them, yeah.
Oh, good.
I still have to get human plasma every week because it makes me stronger because I have antibodies. I have a form of encephalopathy as well, that the plasma helps to get rid of the flare-ups. So this goes just beyond getting rid of the lesions in the brain. It goes towards rebooting my autoimmune system.
I wouldn't mind taking a little peek as a thank you for this.
Well, we're not done yet. You can take a peek later. We still have your.
I know later, of course.
Yeah, we have your Men in Black story.
That's right. Okay. So when I was younger, I'll just set the stage. I guess I'm a teenager, and I'm sitting on a couch watching television, and I hear a door open, or I'll just say my dog's outside. I hear a door open, and it looks like my old friend Ryan that I've been friends with for like 10 years. So I look back and said, "Oh, hey, Ryan." I'm like really excited to see him. And so I turn around to turn off the television, and I start to stand up, and this all happens in like just a few seconds, so it's difficult to describe. He goes like this, he pulls out this black, or it's like a silver metallic, like a darker metal metallic finish tube. And he goes to flash me. And what happens is I go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? So I block my eyes and my third eye. I must have known on some level what was happening. But when I looked, it wasn't my friend Ryan at the door. It was someone else. And I was like, oh, shit. And I don't know what the race is actually, but they have very small eyes and they're very wide set to the head. They don't have any nose and they don't have any like external lips. See how like I have an imprint on my lips, but they just have the mouth slit without that. So if you were to see them, you might say they don't have a face.
So like this.
Yes. Yeah. But it's almost seamless because you have lips, right? But they don't have that. Yeah, they just have a flat on their face. And their eyes are really tiny. Anyway, he was well dressed. And after I covered it and he seen that I didn't get neuralized, he said, with no emotional inflection at all, "I need to flash this between your eyes and your third eye." I said, no, you can't right now. I have to get my dog. So I opened up the door and he was just like following me the whole time that I was opening up the door, just walking past him casually to grab my dog. And I was like, come into the house. And I couldn't get her to come into the house. I don't know why. She probably was in the neighbor yard or something like that. And I turned around to go back into the house and he flashed me. So that was one full chunk of memory. And then I had to do some work to get the second half of that, but I ended up finding out the second half. So after I was neuralized, it was like he completely changed. He was still very monotone, very no emotional inflection. And it seemed like he was unintelligent, but obviously he was intelligent and very telepathic because he had the ability to glean my memories to see who was my friend in the past. And they have other functions like that they can do, like, for example, make you feel like, what's a good description? Like you just have like no energy in your body and they just make you like drop essentially. If they want, but usually they don't focus that hard because they just want you to feel groggy and your speech will actually be slurred and all of that as well.
Like sleep paralysis almost.
It's like sleep paralysis, but you're not like fully paralyzed and fully cognitive. You're like quarter cognitive and quarter physical abilities. Anyway, so after I had that memory recall of what happened, because once I got flashed, I was just like totally compliant. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I didn't have any thoughts or anything. He just gently grabbed my hand and he walked me outside. And I was walking like a baby, kind of like little tiny baby steps. Like each step was like maybe 2 inches or something like that. Like someone with a mental condition, essentially a neurological condition rather. And he guided me towards the craft. And I remember seeing him communicating with my dog telepathically. And he sent my dog into the house telepathically. He just must have told him that there's a treat in the house or something like that in the dog's mind, and he just ran in the house to like get that treat, but it wasn't there. And yeah, they have some pretty cool abilities. So ahead of me, all I could see was this like maybe 8-foot rectangle going upwards. And inside that rectangle, I could see the 2 front seats of the craft. And there was no one else with him. It was just him in the front seat. And I could see 3 sets of toes in the back. Or feet, I should say. And so he guided me into the craft, and there was 3 other people already sitting in there in the back, and they're all neuralized. And I sat down, and then he sat down and shut the door, and I couldn't see the rest of the craft because it was all cloaked. So all I could see was the interior of the craft because the door was open. And so we took off in the craft, and we arrived at a mountainside, which was covered in hologram. And we drove through the mountainside into this massive chamber that houses ships and organizes them. And he took us very gently, again, like a babysitter. I think his job was just to collect people for missions. And that was his job, like a taxi cab driver, essentially, for super soldiers or whatever. And he took us, in order that we were neuralized, into this other chamber, which looked kind of like the Beam Me Up station from Star Trek, a little bit like that. Like with the lights on the ceiling, but not the same sequences in Star Trek. And we all went onto this elevator, which was the same circular unit with the lights. And that's when my memory ended. So it must have did something with my consciousness, because I totally blanked out again.
And Men in Black could be humanoid operations, Black Ops, or it could be extraterrestrial operations. So Men in Black, it's not just what it looks like in the movies, and that they're all good guys protecting us from the ETs. It's quite the opposite.
I don't know a lot about them specifically, but I have a couple memories of them, like mainly in flashes and fragments. But this is the only one that I actually, it was like full recall of what actually happened.
And you also had been at Area 51. Can you describe that experience?
Sure. So when I was younger, from 13 and a half to 16 years old, I was still receiving nosebleeds at that time in junior high and high school. And I was taken to base at Area 51. So I'd be picked up by the TLV-6 and taken to the mountainside base. It was always a mountainside base. So I think, like, I never really made the connection to relating that to Area 51, but maybe that's just the entrance to Area 51. I don't quite know. But anyway, I would be taken to a mountainside, and then I would get changed, go down to my unit, and I remember I had T13 clearance. So it was like top secret 13th level. And I was so young, people didn't know why I had that clearance. But I arrived at base, and whenever I did, there was always a group waiting for me. They're like, oh, finally, he's here. And so I got to my chamber, which was, my job was in communications, but I was essentially in charge of the defense of a Stargate and taking on individuals that were coming through that gate to make sure if they were safe to come through. So if they're malevolent, if they have any viruses or bacteria or anything like that that aren't allowed to come through, then they weren't coming through. So that was my job. So the room was really large, and the Stargate looked like something in Stargate SG-1, frankly, like it was a gate that size. So the room was very long, like maybe 100 feet long by, I don't know, perhaps 50 feet tall or 40 feet wide or something like that. And I remember there was a platform up high above the Stargate, so there were soldiers that could shoot down if anything happened. So my room was actually on the left side of that platform. And inside this little tiny room, maybe like, I don't know, 10 by 10 room, I had this quantum computer. And I was using my empathic abilities to connect to the energy of the beings using this computer. And the computer allowed me to see what was on the other side of the Stargate. So that's what I was doing. And I did that for several years.
Hmm. And on James's show, you had a special guest come in. So did you do channeling?
I did do a little bit of channeling for James, yes.
Can you describe what that was and how it ended up on the show?
I don't remember exactly what was said, but I did get a heads up that she was going to come forward. So her name was Simone, is Simone. She's still alive. She works with Semyasi, with me on special programs. And I won't get too much into that today because I can't stay forever, but she's very interesting, very beautiful being.
And she answered questions that James had for you, right?
I actually didn't watch the recording after it was done, so I haven't seen the video.
Okay. So when you do your channeling, how does that work for you? What's the steps?
Okay, so for me, I feel a presence in the area, and I always check with my team. Like I have strong guidelines that say if you're not like benevolent to all the beings in around me, then you can't come through, period. That's my regulations. Now there's more regulations than that, but that's the main one. So I can trust that a malevolent or ambivalent being won't come through. So that gets rid of a lot of fear for me. Because like as a channel, you have to be mindful because the difference in channeling and possession is allowance. So it's a very fine line. Or there is no line essentially, except for allowance. And for me, I feel the presence of the being, and I'm always talking with them telepathically before I start channeling. And they'll usually give me a greeting, say, hi, I'm here to deliver a message. Sometimes they just come in and I'm really surprised, but I'm okay with it, because we're engaged, like awakened people are engaged and we're having a conversation, so they can just, I have a message for them. But for Simone, she has a very soft energy. She's very, very feminine and soft. Anyway, and so she comes in and I could see her like sitting on top of my body. So it looked like an etheric woman sitting on top of me, over and into me. It's hard to explain. And then I can feel my consciousness just kind of fading back. And then I can feel her coming forward. Now it takes a moment to really connect to their energy strongly, because in the beginning you might just have like maybe 5 or 6% connection. So there has to be some harmonization between your chakras that has to happen with their chakras. So I reach up to reach their vibration, and they reach down, or whatever the arrangement is, halfway. So if I connect with a reptilian being, not all reptilians are like this. The Naga, I've never found to be like this, but some reptilian beings with a closed heart chakra, which is relatively common from my experience when I connect to them, they have like a red or a black heart chakra. And for me, that feels almost like a heart attack. Almost like I feel this crushing pain. And I usually call on my team to be like, oh, what the hell is going on right now? Like, you have to stop this connection. They're like, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine. So after I suffer through it for like 30 seconds of entrainment, the connection's established and I can have like full communication with them. For Simone, it was just like, when she comes in, it just took her a moment because we communicated several times before we're friends. And she came in and I just stepped back and say, here you go, here's the reins, you can drive, just take care of my body.
That reminds me of Methuselah visit that you had.
Oh.
Can you tell us about that? It was a conversation we were having. It's very memorable. I'm like, still can't get that out of my head. Can you describe that event? It was epic.
Okay. So I've never channeled before in my entire life. And I had been spending the last month channeling mana, gathering mana into my chakras, working up from my root all the way up to my crown chakra. And I was at like 90% of my crown chakra. And I was like, okay, when I have all this mana, I'm going to use it to wish away my lower 1/3 of my lower self. So I just have like my medium self and my higher self left. It was pretty naive of me to think that that was possible. But I thought it was. So I tried. And what had happened was, when I was at like 90%, I heard of this voice. And I was totally okay with whatever was happening because I thought that this was my higher self taking over. So I was actually really excited for it. And it was like 92%, I heard the word calibrating. And then like 94%, he's like, I am here. And 96%, I was actually journaling all of this at the same time that I was doing it. And it was a really weird experience because it was a little bit out, a little bit back in. And then 96% came and he said, I am Methuselah. And I was like, okay. Because I wrote that, but I didn't acknowledge it in my head. And the first thing that he did, so I didn't know I was channeling firstly, so it was a weird experience for me. But my hand lifted up and I tried to move this large amethyst, which is like this big, on my table with telekinesis. And I heard, what is this weak vessel? And I was like, oh, I'm kind of a dick. That's just my higher self. It's not a big deal. And at the same time that this was all happening, I was receiving lots and lots and lots of information on like how Methuselah lived, what his DNA was, and all of this jazz, and what he used to eat, and what his culture is like. So he was 60% Anunnaki, and he had like 20% human, and there was something else in there as well. So he was very, his energy was very like, I'm going to do something, and that's how it's going to happen, period. Like there's nothing gets in my way. And anyway, so he stood up and he started to type into my computer because I was like just taking a back seat, just looking at what he was doing, essentially just being an observer of my own body. And I didn't know I was trans-channeling. And he was looking up Methuselah on the computer. And he's like, what is this old man? Who is this old man? And he's like, in every depiction, it's an old man. And he's like, even in my oldest age, I could defeat any 20-year-old human being. No problem. And so we walked into the bathroom together, and he looked at me in the mirror, and he's like, what is this vessel? So he was like looking at me, and I was actually getting ready to go to a medieval jousting fair or festival or whatever. So I was wearing like a tunic and like some leather pants. Can't believe I'm telling the world this. And anyway, so he took my pants and just like essentially dropped them. And he said, what am I working with? And he looked down. He's like, okay, very well. We can work with this. And then he just got ready. And I had already been cooking food. And I was cooking this like spicy Indian food. And so we walked to the kitchen. He said, put some sustenance into this vessel. It's weak. And so I was like, okay, we have some food in the kitchen if you're interested. And he's like, yes. So I put some food in the bowl, and it was really spicy, okay? It was spicier than I expected. And he was like, what is this experience? I've never experienced such heat before. It wasn't temperature hot, but it was like Scoville hot. And he's like, it's pleasant and unpleasant at the same time. But he had never experienced that kind of temperature in food before in his incarnation as Methuselah, I suppose. And because he was showing me that he ate like a lot of leaves and plants and things like that, primarily plants. So anyway, we had to go to the show. And so I got in the car, or we got in the car together, and I can't believe that I made it alive, but we drove down to the show. And I was supposed to, actually, one of my clients had gave me tickets, free tickets to this show. And I was sitting next to them, and one of them approached me, and she was looking for some advice on something. And Methuselah came forward. He was like, "You need to do this, this, and then you will be healed." And she was like, okay. Like, she was really shocked at how direct it was. And then we walked together to the seats where we were sitting with several people. And when I sat down, I didn't know this until the next day, but the girl that sat next to me, Sarah, she's like, "Dave, I don't know what happened last night, but your energy was like off the charts. I could feel it like coming off of you as I was sitting next to you." And she's like, "And my mom could too." And I was like, "Yeah, I was channeling." So anyway, he kind of faded off throughout that evening, probably 30 minutes after that. So he lasted for like an hour and a half, maybe a little bit less. And when I got back from the show, I looked at the messages that I had sent to other people, and there was several messages like, "What is happening? Where am I right now? Blah, blah, blah." And my friend, she's like really advanced. She's like, "Don't worry, hon. You're just channeling right now. It's okay." I don't know how she knew that I was channeling, but she just knew. And so thank you for that. And that was my experience.
So he took you for a joyride, got to know your friends, got to know your clients, got to see a jousting fest, and
Yep.
got to wear your medieval armor clothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, where am I? What is this? Where am I? What period is this from? I'm surprised how did he know how to use a computer?
I have no idea, but he must have like jacked my conscious mind or subconscious mind. So in the next few days after that, he had come forward again and again. And he told me several really cool messages that have to do with personal power and how to embrace your personal power. And he was telling me about signs and protocols and rules and things like that. And he said, in life, there are no rules. You will incarnate into a body and then you will leave that body. These are the only rules. He said, all other rules are made by man, and that it is your free will to choose to listen to these rules or not. Whenever you listen to these rules, you submit your power to someone who created this rule. Now, the being that created this rule, I can feel his presence around me right now. Sorry. Yeah, he's totally here.
Of course, he wants to see what you're doing right now, doesn't he?
Probably, because I was thinking about him. And, oh, he's totally distracting me. I apologize.
Is he asking you anything?
He's just like listening intently, but it's taking my focus away. So just go away. So he's like, these rules are set by humans, and you can choose to follow them or not. Now, the people who create these rules may not follow them themselves. And when you follow a rule that someone else doesn't need to follow, then you surrender your power. And the more rules that you follow, the less power that you have. So use your power wisely, because you only have so much of it. And once you surrender all of it, then you have nothing left.
That's true. It's like when you're on your awakening journey, you're like, there's so much belief systems and rules in this world. We don't really need so much of it, as long as you don't kill anybody, you don't steal things from people, you act like a decent person. Those are the rules that, decent society rules you follow. The other stuff is like a lot of setbacks designed to set you back rules. So free will and power, those are things that are for us, that make us sovereign. Free will, your power. Don't give it away. Don't take it from others, and karma will be balanced. Basically,
Yep.
those are just universal rules wherever you go on planets.
Yeah.
Domain.
Galaxy, yeah.
Yeah, in our galaxy, domain, don't kill, don't steal, and you'll be fine. Treat people with decency. So those are the basic rules of life that I followed. The rest of it is like, well, if it doesn't jive with me, I'm not gonna take it in or do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still.
But I mean, like, that has to do with your polarity and how you're a positive person in life, right? Like, we've had dark lives, but
yeah, and I mean, still pay taxes because I don't want to lose my home.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, sometimes I think that's a weird rule that we have on this planet, but that's the way it is here. I mean, so okay, I pay my taxes. I might think it's silly, but I still do it because I don't want to lose my house and my other possessions.
Yeah.
Because banks repossess you if you don't pay your taxes, if you don't pay the TV, from the Middle Ages. That's where it started from. Did Methuselah know that he was partly extraterrestrial? Did he have the knowing?
I don't think so. And I say that because, so he's still kind of here. He's just like drifting around. He's saying that he was aware that he had great capability, great power, but his memories were still wiped because it's a third dimensional experience that we all have. And he wanted to experience that, he wanted to have that experience in his reality. So that's why that he allowed that to happen, he's saying.
So I hope he found you an interesting experience to wander around in.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, that's for sure.
You also had a Genghis Khan lifetime, I think you said?
I wasn't Genghis Khan, but I do remember like 20 of my, or more of my past lives.
Okay. Lancelot, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Where you got to see your kids, future kids too. That was interesting. I don't think we're going to go into that particular one. It's personal, but like you do remember a lot of your lifetimes.
Yeah.
And how's that done? Was that through hypnosis or channeling?
That's just primarily it just comes. Like, it seems like every time I go to a healing session, maybe I'll go to sound healing, or I'll go to a all raw diet weekend with light language and energy healing and channeling, or something like that. That's when I get these like huge layers of like crap just removed from me. So like after that, actually I went to the sound healing session a while ago, and before that I could speak light language, but I couldn't translate. And after it I could translate light language. And I also had the coolest telepathic experience of my entire life, which I haven't told anybody about, but I'm going to say for another time.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just want to understand the steps of how things come to you, your past lives, your SSP memories, how that comes about. How do you know what is what and where it comes from?
So oftentimes I'll be watching television or whatever. Actually, for the Lancelot lifetime, many occurrences came up. Like I was always interested in like swords and medieval armor and all that stuff, but I never knew why. And like combat. And then I was watching this show called what's it called? Merlin. Yeah, it's called Merlin. And the character Lancelot came on. He's got to go. Just one sec, okay? Sorry. Okay. Oh, God.
Who just went?
They're just like, oh, they're like, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Anunnaki? Who did you have come in?
Oh, that's Methuselah. He's an Anunnaki.
So he's still floating around, is he?
Yeah, he's just distracting. But like, the Anunnaki energy is like, look at me, I have power, I'm fantabulous.
Well, the This blonde is saying, thank you, Methuselah, for showing up, but right now we want to talk about Lancelot, so can you please allow David to do David stuff? Thank you.
Just over there for now, please. Thank you. What was I talking about, Lancelot?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, so Lancelot came on the show, which wasn't for several seasons until several seasons into the show. And my whole body absolutely filled up with goosebumps. Like, oh, it was like a Kundalini experience, kind of, I guess. Don't know how to describe it. And I was like, what the hell was that? And so I turned off the show and I went back to it like half an hour later and I was like, let's just see. So I watched the show from the beginning again and nothing until I got to that Lancelot. It's like, oh, Lancelot. And then I just filled up with energy again. I was like, okay, there's something going on here. And like, I had this inner knowing that I just was Lancelot. So I talked to a friend named Bruce Whittier, and he's a really strong psychic as well. And I was actually visiting him for a while, and he had a friend over, and she's very sensitive as well. And she's like, he asked her, pick out 3 cards that describes David. And he picked out the Holy Grail, Knight of the Round Table, and a king or something. Oh, and the other card was a dragon. And she's like, are you Lancelot? And I was like, oh shit. Like, I didn't know it for sure, but another person had told me that again. And that was like really confirmation for me. But I've like, for whatever reason, that was a really relevant past life in my life. So I've come into contact with many of the other knights and 2 people who have fractals of Morgana as well. So.
Well, you definitely look like Lancelot when you have longer hair and a beard.
Thanks.
And a goatee. Like, you really look different with shorter hair and no beard. Like, the look totally changes. It's like you morph. You just look a lot more bulkier with long hair and beard, and then you kind of look more muscular and slimmed down without it. So it's like you physically, when you just sort of change your haircut, your facial hair stuff, that really makes you look different.
I like the word bulky. Good job. Good selection of saying maybe just, chubbier or
no, muscle bulk. I mean, muscle bulk. I mean, not chub, muscle. It's like you just look much more like you're taller and bigger when you have a beard and longer hair. You look like you embody Lancelot. That's the first thing that I see, because when we met, when we were just talking on Zoom, you had your Lance outfit going and you had beard right. And the long hair. I'm like, I think I'm meeting Lancelot. You look like Lancelot. Now you look like David. It's just, you have a way of changing up your appearance. Just
so he was really prevalent in my life at that time, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, now you're more like the sleek JQ look.
I don't know what that means, but thank you.
Well, clean shaven, short hair, clean JQ look, sleek.
What's like, JQ?
JQ, it's a magazine. It's a men's magazine.
Oh.
A fashion, like men wearing suits, clean shaven, you know. They're going for the successful look.
Maybe we can change the topic.
Yeah, but what I mean is that you have a way of changing your appearance to fit into whatever situation you need to be in or whatever mood you're in. So it comes easily to you. And you look different. Like, I
probably lost 2 pounds when I cut my hair.
I think that does give you that that way of changing your body. And to me, when you were in your Lancelot look, I'd say you were like in your 30s or something. That would be my guess. When you're like this, you look like you're in your 20s something.
Well, I'm 35.
Yeah, me too. I think we're both Capricorn.
Yeah, I'm on the cusp, actually.
Yeah, I'm a full Capricorn. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a little tricky, but it's all good. I think you wanted to scan me or something. How does that
We'll
work?
save that for a private session, but I can explain it.
Yes, please. Can you explain how that works?
So the first thing that I do is I always ask for permission from your team, from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't get in contact with you, then I can ask your team. If it's like, for example, a mother wants me to work on her child, then I'll ask the child's higher self if it's okay before I ever work on the child. So there's a lot of ethics and morality involved first. That's like the first thing that comes forward. After that's done, with a picture of somebody's face, I create a psychic construct of their energy field in front of me to work as a proxy. And from there, I can find out what chakras are blocked up at what percentage, and I'll move up the system. And as I'm checking this, that will tell me what's out of balance. That will tell me what needs to be worked on and what parts of their life aren't working properly. Excuse me. So that's the scan. Now the scan can go deeper into like non-terrestrial DNA, consciousness levels, and things like that. But I usually don't do that with just a regular healing session, with normal psychic surgery. And then I'll remove all of the blockages out of all of the chakras. And if they have too many, then I'll have to do it to another session, on another session. But I'll do as much as I can in the hour time period. And then when I'm done, then it's like if you imagine a butter container or a jar of Basil, let's say that, and you remove the lid of the Basil, that's like that percentage that I'm seeing. So if I see a chakra that's like 25% blocked, that's like super, super, super blocked. That's like, if you have 4 chakras that are like that, then you'll begin manifesting fibromyalgia. Like that's the level of blockage that they have. But most people have like between 5 and like 15% blocked chakra. That's like their bad one. And then they'll have like a couple that are at like 10% or something like that. That's pretty average. After you remove the lid of the Basil jar, then you can see like how much Basil is in there. You know, is there breadcrumbs in there? Is there a mouse in the jar and it's half gone? So after I remove the lid, then I can see what entities are in that field. I can see like, oh, you were killed by this, or there's an anchor around your neck. Okay. There's lots of things that will pop up, and it's usually things that you've died from or phobias that you have, things like that. So those start to show themselves. So after I do that, I'll turn them over and look at the back, because that's another thing. Again, for a long time, I thought that I could just look at the front and that was okay. But there's always stuff on the back. So you should always check the back if you're going to do that. And then I have to shift my intention to go to another layer of the field. So if I want to look for AI, I have to set the intention. If I want to look for implants, that's another layer again. So all of these things are in different layers. And if I'm not focused on that layer, then it might not come up. So that might help other healers that are out there trying to help other people. You have to focus on the layer. And if you can't see something, that's totally okay. You can sense that it's there, but if you miss it, that's okay too. If the client feels a pain somewhere in their body, then there's definitely a blockage in that area. So if they say, yeah, I have a really big pain in the neck, can you address that? That will set your intention to focus on their neck, and that you may be able to see what's in that area because of that, hyper focus. So I would suggest doing that if you're having issues locking on to certain parts of the body. I would suggest doing that. And
then you close off their work field and clear it, right?
Yeah, so at the end of the procedure, if I remove there's a lot to this, right? If I remove an implant, for example, depending on how complex it is, I throw it in a portal when I'm done, firstly. And if I can, or if I have time, I should say, I'll see who put it there, what was its purpose, and what did it do, and then I'll chuck it, usually. but I usually don't take the time to do that. I just pull it out and then keep going. But anyway, that's an option. After an implant is removed, there's often damage to the auric field. So I have to go in to the Adam Cadman and look at the full DNA template of the person in their perfect condition, and then bring that forward to heal the field, to heal that hole, the damage that's done. And when the damage is healed, then I get this big body rush, which feels, it's like my little reward, I guess. But yeah.
And the person might feel cold sensation or warmth afterward.
It's variable for every person. Every person's different. Some people feel warm, some people feel cold, some people feel tingly. Sometimes it's a combination of things, and some people don't feel anything at all.
And you also do infusions, right?
Yes. So
what's that all about?
So the infusions are complex, and it's something that takes time and research because it lasts with you your whole life. A DNA infusion, I work with Ashtar Command, who helps me with the DNA infusions because they have a big list of species that are able to donate DNA, and they're willing to donate DNA. So a DNA infusion is DNA from another species that is put into your genetics strand. So first, what happens is they scan you from the craft, and they see what is optimized for you, because some DNA is not compatible with other DNA. And some DNA is really difficult to integrate into the body. So if you have like a lot of, I don't want to say airy-fairy beings, but like Pleiadians, Arcturians, Yael DNA, and then you take on some insectoid DNA, your body might not take that really well. And it might take a long time for it to integrate fully into your body. So it might have some harsh effects. And reptilian DNA is different again from insectoid and from humanoid as well. So what happens is they'll scan your body, they'll see what is best designed for you, because each DNA infusion from each different race is different. So for example, if you want a Lyran DNA infusion, you will have faster reflexes. You'll have better muscle tone. You might begin to grow, depending on the percentage of the DNA infusion. You might have like soft, fluffy hair that grows all over your body. That's like more extreme. That rarely happens, but that can happen. And so it really depends on the percentage of the infusion. Whereas if you have like, I don't want to be really generic and say reptilian, but a reptilian race, I'll say Saurian, for example, like a terrestrial reptilian, you would become more strong-willed. You would be more calm-minded, more focused. Your intelligence or IQ always goes up. So your EQ can go up as well, and your psychic abilities become stronger. So with pretty much every DNA infusion, your IQ goes up, your psychic abilities go up, and your intelligence increases as well. But there's a lot of other factors that are put into play with DNA infusions.
So like I know that Girkfoot near Takare, who Jim Charles works with, they do medical infusions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do medical infusions, or you just do enhancements of strength, psychic stuff?
So the medical infusions, so the DNA infusions, they can complement what is out of balance oftentimes. So I don't do it personally, but I work with beings that do it. So that's how I do it. I just can telepathically talk to them and they'll do it.
Okay, so you're more like the conduit for the communication with the ETs to say, well, my client wants, they have a medical issue that they want to get rid of this, this, or this, or, you know, just heal this, this, and that, and you give the ETs the info and they prepare the infusion for whatever the client needs, and through you it just gets transferred.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an ambassador position between two beings, yeah. So they might not be able to relay what their intentions are to whoever because they don't know that they exist, frankly. But if they do know they exist, they may not be strong enough telepathically to reach them. So what I do is I'll ask them to scan them, and then they can see what's going on with the body from the ship, which is often helpful as well. And whatever information I can get from them looking at it, because they often let me see what they're looking at while we're doing the telepathic thing, I can tell the person what I'm seeing. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a wide range of session services that you do, the channeling, the memory retrieval, energy healing, psychic surgery, infusions. Do you do anything else?
I do mediumship stuff, but I don't really like doing it. So I don't offer that, but I can do that. But that's primarily what I enjoy doing. I do Reiki and galactic energy healing as well. Galactic energy healing is pretty popular.
And what is that?
So Kruger, this is something that Kruger taught and brought to Earth. So there's like 20 people that know how to do that on Earth right now. And essentially, it's like Reiki on steroids. So on the human colonies, which is designed for, like, there's entertainment, telepathy,
Medical,
all of these different colonies. They're all designed to help people out, and they visit them once in a while to help them for pick-me-ups and all this jazz. Anyway, they've been using the symbols. The Arcturian Council has been using these symbols on humans for a long period of time. And they've discovered what symbols work better with humans, what work worse with humans, and what you just can't use at all with humans. And they've also discovered what they do when specifically used on a certain thing as well. So anyway, they found out a list of symbols. It's called spirals and non-spirals. And it's like two different components of the same thing that are effective on humans. So Kruger taught us, and she attuned us to use these symbols. And some of them are really, really good, really strong.
cool. I mean, I've met Kruger. She's tall Lyran.
Yeah.
And there's Tepech. He's an aquatic ET species, I think.
I haven't met him.
Yeah, they're interesting. They've both given me some infusions, which helped me to get rid of the nanos that I had been infested with some nanites. And so I think you saw one of my videos or something with Jim Charles, and you said, "Oh, you'd seen me because you'd been." What's the YouTube channel called?
So it's called hookalo.com, I believe.
Yeah.
And from there you can get links to his YouTube channel, but he always has channeling every Saturday.
Yeah, and you were part of that, I think, one of the shows or something, and you'd seen me do a video, and then you contacted me and you said, "Oh, we both know James Rink," because you'd seen something from that channel with me on there as well, Super Soldier Talk, because you're friends with James. And so we got to know each other that way.
Yeah, it's such a small world in the galactic community, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're both in Canada. I'm in British Columbia. You're in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So it's a hopscotch away a few provinces, but hey, technology allows us to chat and trade ideas, and we've done a few light language discussions together, a few trades for each other. Would you like to do something as a bit of a protection for light language? As a close?
What? Sure. To protect from what? Anything specific?
No, just good energy.
Okay. Monyoko ona asakau, vandashukuna ayewa, vantu ana shakune, franka ush ewe una asakau ushke, anu asaku una aprakute, shankua sanare, vandoshike ewa, manu asakawa, franku ushke, una sakawa ushke, anayakunde, naya ansuke, Franku ushewa, manyakose, frantukushi, pasunanaki, and uaka, shana asawe, Brantushuke buns ashawe manya uns. All right. They're saying that we bring you this blessing to help you with your expansion, with your love, with your light, and your journey from beyond, from this reality and beyond. Know that you are capable and you are expansive and loved. You have great potential, and what is not seen in physical is expounded upon in corporeal, in etheric. I apologize. Know that you have great potential and abilities to help many, like a beacon of light to shine upon those who are lost in the dark. Know that you can achieve what you desire, manifest what you wish, and come forward with what you desire to manifest. Bring this energy forward within you, help yourself to heal, and you help everyone around you to heal. Know that you can grow, guide, and expand beyond your physical means into the ether, beyond what you know is existence, and manipulate your reality to serve your highest good. Protect all those around you from the darkness, and you will become complete again. Thank you.
Beautiful. I just have one more question. The Kalandi, were you born there, or did they create the fetus to put you into your mom?
So I wasn't born there, but I was just made there, I guess.
Okay.
Well, it was dad's sperm taken there, worked on, then I was put into my mom.
And are there other kids born in the Kalandi?
Yeah. I can't say any names, but I know a person that was also born with me. So she's kind of like my sister, but she was born on the craft.
Mm-hmm. And how are they, like test tubes? Like, how are they grown on the Kalandi?
They're not tubes, but it's like a glass form that would be extremely difficult to create on Earth, I suppose. But it's more like a bubble rather than a tube. And yeah, they have, the ship is 3 miles long, so they have a lot of space to do what they want. So there's a lot of different sections that I haven't seen to the craft. So I don't know exactly everything that they can do, but from what I've seen, they're test tube-ish.
Okay. And do the kids survive on the Kalandi, or like what happens to them when they're 14 or 13? Like, where do they go?
So they leave before that age. Some are kept on the craft to help with the crew. Some that have more galactic DNA and they just won't be compatible with Earth. They stay on ship. But others that are optimized for the vibration of the planet, if they meet that certain criteria, then they can be used for whatever purpose.
So does Earth have some kind of agreement with the Kalandi? Like, how could the Kalandi be on Earth in a cave system?
Okay, so I will say yes, but not that Earth, but perhaps the Earth's government has an arrangement. And I don't know at what level this government's connections is. But yeah, there is a connection there. And the Kalandi craft was, there's a being on the ship called Eliajandi, and they are virtually extinct. So they almost died out, and they needed to seek refuge. So what they did was they spoke to the Galactic Council, and they spoke to the Terrans, or the government, and they allowed them refuge in exchange for services rendered. So that's the circumstance. So there's a lot of beings on the ship that are almost extinct, and they're just surviving there, working to live, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And they mostly do the viral DNA upgrades, right? Genetics.
I don't know if it's mostly, but yeah, they definitely do that.
And that's different from technological cyborg enhancements, right?
Yeah, so you can have enhanced. As a soldier, you can be enhanced or you can be augmented. So enhanced is via chemical synthesis. So it's optimizing the DNA. It's incorporating something that wasn't there before organically to enhance it, the genetic structure. And augmentation is introducing something that doesn't belong to the body naturally, like nano or femto technology and metals and other things like that, to enhance it on a physical level as well.
So you're enhanced virally for your genetics.
Yeah.
You didn't want any of the nano or the femtypes.
No. Hell no.
Okay, just to clarify that, that was my higher self's like, ask him about the Kalandi and about the genetics and all of that jazz. And again, there's no limitations to the genetics of mass and height and body, right?
There are some limitations because of gravity. So the size of the beings are limited because of the gravity.
Mm-hmm. But on the ship itself, like you, during James's interview, you said that it doesn't really, like, there's no limitation what they can do genetically, right? Like what they can create.
That's true.
Like any size.
But once they leave the ship, they have to be compatible with Earth.
Yeah, but on the ship itself, there's not much limitation, right?
That's correct.
What genetically can be done?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, just body and mass. Remember you said that there's like body and mass. It doesn't depend on physicality. It could be energetic DNA alteration that's done, and you can grow body mass and change.
Oh, yes. So in order for a genetic change to happen, there has to be a template created etherically and overlaid into the vessel. And then once it's etherically created, it can be overlaid with physical genetic template. And then it will be stable and it will hold. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, just to get some clarification, because I'm very much aware of genetics and stuff. Just interested how it's done on the Kalandi.
I wish I had the fine details, but I'm still pulling that kind of memory, you know what I mean? The fine details.
Well, you've provided quite a lot of info. Just that last, my higher self was saying, just ask him about that last piece of the template overlay and how that would work with getting the genetics into that. So that was the last thing she wanted me to ask Janae, my higher self. She's like, ask him. That's the final thing. Just ask him. So I asked, and you provided quite a good answer for that. It's clear to me how it works. So it's just one last piece of that little puzzle. So is there anything else that you'd like to mention or include?
Oh, I would say that if anyone's interested in a healing session, Elle does healing. I do healing. You can check out my website through my Facebook. Just add me, and I'll say yes, probably. You can check out my Wix site from there, or you can just search up David Lotherington on Wix, and you can see a list of my services on that page. Yep, shoot me a message, or send me an email. I'll get right back to you.
And you're also included, I think, as a list of psychics on James Rink's Super Soldier Talk website, right?
Yes, I am, yeah.
So they can find you there as well, just to, you have a listing there as well with James? And
yeah, I believe his website is neologicaltech.com.
Yes, neologicaltech.com, yeah. So it's, and you do a lot of great work. I've seen some of your psychic abilities, so you're genuine, you're good at what you do. So that's my kind of referral for you.
I can recommend you as well.
Yeah, we can recommend each other because you're the real deal to me. You've scanned me, you've looked at my physicality stuff and my things. So, and I was quite happy with what you did and the light language stuff. And you actually helped a client. So somebody we both know, just kind of, so you got to help that person and they said good things about you as well. So thank you so much for helping them and me.
Well, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to do that. And thank you for having me on the program.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to doing this again soon.
Sure.
Have a great night. Bye.
Good night, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, like, comment, and subscribe, because David has his own YouTube channel, don't you?
Oh, that's funny because I got like 20 new subscribers in the past 2 days.
And how can they find you on YouTube?
Just put in my name, David Lotherington. I have like 60 subscribers. Now I have 80, so that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I only have a couple videos, so.
Well, this is only his second interview disclosing.
Yes, that is true.
So he has a lot of information, always happy to be here to chat, and to like very honest person. So look him up. His light language is amazing on YouTube. Highly recommend. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night, David.
Good night, Al.
Bye.
Bye.